It was supposed to be just another quiet evening at home, but nature had other plans. My name is Alex, and I live in a small town nestled between the hills. The weather had been unpredictable for days, but that evening it was different. Dark clouds gathered ominously, swallowing the last rays of the sun. A thick, unsettling silence hung in the air, broken only by the occasional distant rumble of thunder. I was alone at home that night, as my parents were out of town. Sitting by the window, I watched as the sky turned from gray to pitch black in a matter of minutes. The wind began to howl, making the trees outside sway violently. A sense of unease crept over me. I tried to brush it off as just my imagination, but something about this storm felt off, like it was more than just a natural phenomenon. The first bolt of lightning struck, illuminating the entire town in a blinding flash. I jumped at the sheer intensity of it, followed by a deafening crash of thunder that rattled the windows. The lights flickered, and I rushed to find a flashlight, my heart pounding in my chest. Power went out, plunging the house into darkness. I fumbled through drawers, finally finding the flashlight and turning it on, its weak beam cutting through the dark. I tried to keep myself occupied, telling myself that it was just a storm and it would pass. But then I heard it. Faint tapping sound against the window. I turned my head, expecting to see raindrops. There was nothing, just darkness and the occasional flash of lightning. The tapping continued, growing louder and more insistent. I walked over to the window, peering out. There was no one there, just the trees bending under the force of the wind. As I turned away, a loud bang out from upstairs. My heart skipped a beat. It sounded like something heavy had fallen. The storm outside raged on, the wind now howling like a wounded animal. I cautiously made my way upstairs, flashlight trembling in my grip. Each step creaked under my weight, amplifying the silence between the thunderclap. The door to my bedroom was slightly ajar, and the sound seemed to be coming from inside. I pushed the door open, and my eyes scanned the room. Everything seemed normal at first glance. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. Just as I was about to leave, the lightning struck again, and for a split second I saw a shadow move in the corner of the room. I whipped the flashlight in that direction, but there was nothing. My heart pounded louder than the thunder outside. Trying to convince myself it was just my imagination, I turned to leave the room. But then I heard a low whisper, barely audible over the storm. It was like someone was calling my name. Alex? My blood ran cold. I froze, straining to hear over the storm. Again, the whisper came, this time clearer and closer, like someone was standing right behind me. I spun around, the flashlight beam shaking as I frantically searched for the source of the voice. There was no one, just my empty room and the storm outside. The windows shook violently, and the whisper turned into a wail, a haunting, sorrowful sound that sent shivers down my spine. I backed out of the room, slamming the door shut behind me. I raced downstairs, my mind racing with fear. I grabbed my phone to call my parents, but there was no signal. The storm had cut off all connections. I was alone, trapped in my house with whatever was haunting me. The tapping on the windows grew louder, almost frantic, as if something was trying to get in. I huddled in the corner of the living room, clutching the flashlight, its beam flickering as the batteries began to die. The storm outside reached its peak, with lightning striking every few seconds and thunder roaring like a beast. The whispers grew louder, echoing through the house, calling my name over and over. Alex, Alex. It was as if the storm was alive, taunting me, feeding on my fear. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from the kitchen. I jumped up, my body trembling with terror. I slowly made my way to the kitchen, my footsteps barely audible over the raging storm. The door to the backyard was wide open, swinging in the wind. I was sure I had locked it earlier. The rain poured in, drenching the floor. I moved to close it, but something stopped me. In the distance, illuminated by a flash of lightning, I saw a figure standing at the edge of the yard. It was tall and shadowy, its features obscured by the rain. Just stood there, unmoving, watching me. I slammed the door shut and locked it, my hands shaking uncontrollably. I backed away, my eyes glued to the door, waiting for it to burst open. But it didn't. The whispers stopped, replaced by an eerie silence that was somehow worse than the noise. I spent the rest of the night huddled in the corner, too afraid to move. The storm finally began to subside in the early hours of the morning, thunder growing distant and the rain slowing to a drizzle. When the first light of dawn broke, I dared to move. Cautiously opened the door, half expecting to see the figure still standing there, but the yard was empty. There were no footprints, no signs that anyone had been there. Power returned, and the house was once again filled with the hum of electricity. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. The house felt different, colder, as if the storm had left behind a lingering presence. I never found out what it was that haunted me that night, and I didn't want to. I moved out of that house soon after, leaving behind the memories of that terrifying night. Even now, every time I hear the rumble of thunder, I can't help but feel that something is watching me, waiting in the shadows, ready to call my name once more.